Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates. And viewers, for this conversation this morning, we are getting started with in relation to the first news or off on our newscast this morning. And so we are being joined right now by Mr. Curtis Douglas, who is the president of the All Tobago Fisher Folk Association, as we discuss what's been going on with this ban to the European Union, where we've been red flagged about exporting fish. So good morning and welcome to you, Mr. Douglas. How are you doing?
Good morning to Tobago Updates. And before I start, I always say, share the live, right?
Certainly. And so let's get into it. So we've been red flagged by the European Union, so we cannot export our fish. Now, the Ministry of Trade stated that, we don't really send a whole lot of our fish to Europe. What is your reaction to their take on the situation?
Now, this people have to understand. The Trade and Industry Minister, they will try to defend the process, but the process is hurting Trinidad and Tobago, and this sends a clear signal to the people, not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but also in the Caribbean. Right now, he's saying 0.1%. That's a number, that's a number, and every penny counts. Now, just for Trinidad and Tobago to be red flagged is dangerous. We are treading through waters that is quite turbulent and quite toxic here. That can hurt the entire. It is hurting the entire fishing industry, right?
How so?
How? One, before I get to how so, I'd just like to tell you the build-up. In 2016, Trinidad and Tobago was yellow flagged. So it's like football. You get a warning and then you get a red card. So that means you're out of the game. Now, with that, since then, there is no fishing bill. Nothing was done in any aggressive way to meet or to curb or to help Tobagonians, because what happened? Tobagonians used to ship to Europe, but we don't anymore.
When was the last time we shipped to Europe?
That is over 15 years ago or more.
And why did that stop?
Because we haven't reached the standards. Now, for Tobagonians to ship anything abroad, they have to go to Trinidad. Hence, the capital of paradise have to go to Trinidad to sell the tuna to ship it abroad. Now, even in the European Union, the rules and the law of the sea is one, and all of them sign up to this. So if Europe issue a red card to Trinidad and Tobago, from some point in time, the Americas will have to comply. Because I would have mentioned earlier in the year where we was having a problem with the Bajans about the unregulated fishing. This is part of the reason. This is part of the reason why we are feeling the effect now, right? So we ignore the rules that the world governed by, and we were doing our own thing. We want what this is about too is to stop illegal fishing. We sign up to the treaty, to the convention, and we almost follow the rules. We have Bajans in Trinidad and Tobago waters fishing unregulated. We have people from Cambodia, just name it, coming to our territorial zone and fishing unregulated. There is no data, Candice. And this is what they're trying to curb. They must have structure. And not only that, unregulated fishing, the type of fish, unregulated fishing, using the right type of nets, using the right type of artisan material to ensure that your fish is healthy and the right process. For example, you have to meet HACCP standard in order to export. And you need training so from your fish to your plate. So when you catch your fish, it's straight into the ice. You can't be going and you having nets coming in with tons of fish and they're not properly iced and maintained, because fish carry bacteria as well, right?
And then, what about in terms of the sustainable practices? Like, what are those practices that we are not doing right here in Trinidad and Tobago?
One of the practices that we're not doing is we feel in in following the rules. One, we fail miserably, right? Now, about 8 years ago, 10 years ago, you find when they had Mr. Holmes in the fisheries department, he was trying to get fishermen trained and and stuff like that. But more so, when you don't take care of the fish, right? That means the way it would not be saleable. It is not ready for consumption, right? So one, men have to be trying more ice in sea. Hence the reason why Tatco now is running a drive-by sea where they're trying to put ice box so men could have access to ice. Ice is the key, one of the key issue in all of it. So that's why all these some of these big trawlers that are regulated comes to these depot and try to flush the ice so that when the fish go in, it is sustainable, no bacteria, it reaches standard. When it is tested, you could get a fair price for your fish, right? One, our processing plants needs to be updated. Our processing plants need to be updated. Two, we need also proper marketing. We need people to market. We need fishermen to fish, and we need people to market and people to sell. So it's a whole host of chain event where a lot of people, youths, can get involved to earn a salary up to probably $15,000 to $12,000 a month, right?
Now, in terms of, I mean, when you look at some of the rules that we have of fishermen around the world, like even like if you're watching like the way how people in Maine, when they go on to catch the lobsters, there is like size stipulations. You know, they try not to catch, I say the lobsters that are breeders and things like that. I mean, are those any practices that we are emulating here in terms of the fish that we're catching? Like, I mean, the size that we're catching to make sure that we have the continuity of the population of fish.
And this is what ATFA we're fighting for, right? One, you cannot catch a fish under 2 inches and this dolphin, you know what I mean? 12 feet. I mean, you need 12 inches. You need, listen, when we were trying to put in place whereby the size of the catch, the type of catch you catch, right? Secondly, you do not catch, for example, lobsters with eggs. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Come on, let's be realistic, right? Yeah. And also the type of fishing we fish, right? Normally in Tobago, the type of fishing we fish is not basically unregulated, but sometimes I've been watching over the years, the size of the kingfish and the dolphin has reduced due to a lot of things, global warming, oil companies, different sort of things, right? But there is no one in place to police and to collect the resident data in order to say, well, look, last year the size of the fish would have increased or decreased, so we could then compare. But nothing is set in place. The whole fishing industry has just left wide open, and after we're trying our best to mend it, to put it together, to work with some fishermen, because I'm seeing, for example, in Palatavere, in Plymouth, in some Lambo, when they go out and they reach dolphin a certain size, they call them punyakis. You know, punyakis, they're advised not to catch them, even though they would have paid exorbitant amount of money to buy the petrol or whatever. They're not catching it because they know within 3 months, these dolphins could be like 5 feet in length, 6 feet, 7 feet, 8 feet in length, right? Even we would have seen in Plymouth where the guys would have stopped catching the redfish because they were so puny. So as the president, I advised them not to, and they say, well, here what? We're not going to see, we're not going to fish them until they grow. So we are seeing cooperation from some of the fisher folks. But when some of them, when they say they have nothing else, or they're buying back gas, whatever, they catch it and they're selling it to the public. But that is a practice we don't encourage, right? So it's a whole host of things that we need to do, right? We need to do.
And what about in terms of even shark? Because we know there's a lot of sharks that are endangered and so on, and there's so many studies and so many things out there so many groups out there that are trying to preserve the population of shark. But in Trinidad and Tobago, shark and bake is a thing. So
Yeah.
how are we even balancing how much shark that we catch to make sure we still have shark and bake as a thing?
Well, right. You see, it all boils down to regulation and structure. For example, if you're a shark fisherman, you need to be classed as a shark fisherman, and you will now be educated, trained to know what type of shark to catch. So you would know you're not catching hammerhead shark, you're not catching great white, or whatever the case may be, right? And you will only allow a certain amount as well because you need to preserve. But that comes with ATFA 1.30 plan. The 1.30 plan have all these things in place to ensure and safeguard food security in Tobago, and also Trinidad could take a page from us in moving forward.
But do our fishermen do that here? Because I mean, I actually have seen sometimes some fishermen, you would have some small hammerhead sharks, and you were like, why are they catching these?
Exactly. Because remember, some of these research on these scientific evidence would have shown that, there's a depletion in the shark species.
And they are
No-
very important
the-
for the ecosystem.
Balance. You
Yes.
need that balance. But when you're not educated, Candice, when you're not told, no one mentioned it to you, explain to you, right, the process, and have something in place for you to do alternative beside shark, right? And everybody's bus open. So you would find that you have members of a team, Mr. Koshi, Mr. Cooper, Miss Winchester. They will now go and try to educate in different ports and stuff about shark fishing. And sometimes, you have to have a skill when you're dealing with fishermen. You have to go very gentle and try to explain, but you also cannot just go and tell them this is what happened. You have to go with something in place, right? You have to go with something in place, because when you're catching small shark, it's really damaging the ecosystem. More so, we've seen a rise in the temperature in water, the water in Tobago, not Tobago, worldwide, is at the highest for the last 45 or 50 years.
Yes.
Highest, right?
And how is that impacting the fish population around us?
Well, how that impacting the fish population? The drifting season is about, the flying fish season is about to open or kick off next month, right? You will see the impact. You will see the impact. We wasn't getting flying fish, is no suffering it, because what the impact gonna mean? That means they're gonna be laying less. They're gonna be in the population of the flying fish gonna be getting less. We are seeing a depletion in it from over the last 5 years. That's why we said in the next 5 years or so, we may not even have flying fish or kingfish, because one, bad practices, bad fishing, and all of these add up to the climate change, ignition. All of that is affecting the whole community. The ends the reason why we are on a drive to ensure to educate and to also safeguard our food security. There's a shortage in food security happening in the world. If you watch right now in the same EU in London, British people are now buying British products only. So you're seeing the foreign products on the shelf, but the local products are going, because there are subsidies and stuff like that to ensure that these farmers and these fisher folk have these things. So you find some of these things are trying to safeguard with the food security. And we must not wait until we're starving before we do something. We must do something and must do it now. Imagine a yellow card since 2016. Yeah, this is 2023, right? You ain't even have framework bill. You have a bill to pass, and it's still and even pass through cabinet, right? When we make recommendation, right? Because here what you find is a lot of suits making decisions and don't understand the whole entire game, right? So even if you have your lawyers and your scientists, you need the common man who is there, the day-to-day fisher folk, who is there involved to make decisions, so your decision will be comprehensive and you will be able to meet the demand and know how to police and to monitor and to maintain the whole food security chain line in Tobago and Trinidad. And that is the whole problem. Failing just to even make an attempt. This bill, this fisheries bill that they're trying to framework they're trying to do, is over 15 to 20 years we are talking about here. But you know what? Thinking on the positive side, Candice, we now have a grand opportunity as Trinidad and Tobago to build a stronger house together, because from the EU they are offering cooperation to work with us. They didn't just say they just red flag us. They give us the opportunity to let's build together, because it's not Trinidad and Tobago alone, but I only could speak for Trinidad or more so Tobago.
So, are you hopeful? Are you hopeful at all that perhaps the government will listen and consider your voices, not just here in Tobago, but also in Trinidad? Because I know Mr. Gary Aboud has been making some noise where this is concerned and so on. And actually, he even raised some problems, some issues with the current bill that is being considered.
A small token about the current bill. The reason why I haven't mentioned anything about the current bill is because I do not like to mention things without evidence. No, I haven't seen the current bill. The current bill is not public for public perusal. So you find, until I see the bill and what they are proposing or purporting to pass in the parliament, then I could say, well, look, this is not sustainable. This is not smart. This is not workable. So until they give us the draft, because it's only a draft, right? And this draft, I said, they've been drafting for the last 20 years, right? This bill, the fisheries management bill that we have in Trinidad and Tobago is about 100 years old.
Yes.
That's how old it is. So how they expect us to comply with a modernist scientific lifestyle that we live in now to a 100-year archaic bill that has not even been amended in any kind of meaningful way for the last 20 to 50 years.
And we know that there's so much has changed about the seas in the last 15 and 20 years. Even in the last 5 years, quite a lot has changed about the population of the fish, the conditions, all of that.
Correct. So it is so that's what the reason why I did not mention or say anything about the bill and what it purport to, because I didn't have the requisite information to do so. So until I have that information, until ATFA have the information, because it's not only me alone, it's a team. It's a board member that represent the all Tobago fisher folks, so that we could then advertise it, send it to all the fisher folks that are under ATFA, and then we peruse it together, and then we will say, well, look, because we would have made a recommendation to the JSC. We would have made a recommendation what we would like to see happen for Tobago, because make no mistake, Tobago is unique in its own way and special in its own way. So what may work for Trinidad in the terms of commercial fishing may not necessarily be workable in Tobago, because remember, make no mistake, we are a more pirogue-based fishing society, and we are now trying to make the transition from pirogue to more commercial fishing, right? So we're trying to do that with the help from the Chief Secretary and the department to make that transition, whereby, you know, we are seeing how the Capital of Paradise is performing. So we need to make that transition and have more cooperative working together with fisher folks, so we could make that transition, so we could catch more. Because make no mistake, even with our pirogue, are competing with trawlers, you know. How could you? That is like having a turtle and a rabbit race. You know what I mean? So I mean, we have to up our game, but it needs a collaborative effort with all the fisher folks in Tobago and Trinidad in order, because what we would have seen happen in the past is whereby cabinet sit down and pass rules in cabinet and in parliament for Trinidad and Tobago, and it affects Tobago. It doesn't apply for Tobago, because when you pass a law stating that you're not supposed to carry gasoline or petrol in the back of your vehicle, we don't even have a fuel station on a jetty.
On a jetty, yeah.
So how could you? First thing you have to do is put that in place. You can't. So Tobago, all at Tobago, is breaking the law right now. We all fisher folk is just breaking the law. So it wasn't that. That is because there was no consideration for Tobagonian And the voice of a Tobagonian or Tobago fisherfolk was not present when they made that decision. Right? So I just want to stray a bit. So I quite agree. It is time for Tobago to have autonomy in the event to make decisions that will benefit Tobago and also Trinidad, instead of Trinidad making decisions to benefit Trinidad and suffer in Tobago. I think sometimes I don't think they are doing it willfully. I think that they're just not being educated enough to understand the whole process of the life and the livelihood of Tobagonians, and they just make decisions, think it's across the broad brush it.
Yes.
They just run a ruler down the wall, but no, this wall we have to take some stone, rub it down, prime it, and prepare it before we make that. So
Yes.
that is the whole process what is going on right now with the red flag and the constitution and stuff like that for Tobago.
And while this matter continues to grab our attention, we hope that the government is also considering that bill that was sent down several years ago from the THA about the protection of our marine parks. That's another one that's been sitting on the books for a while. But we need those things here if we are to comply, even with some of the treaties, the Paris Convention, all of those things.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, yeah, we have a lot to consider.
Because in the terms of marine park, and I just want to touch a bit. I would like to see really...
In just 1 minute.
In just one, I would like to see where the finance minister really paid some special attention to food stocks, agriculture, and the movements in the terms of engines and stuff like that, machines coming to make it easier, but industrial, for not only the fisher folk, but also for farmers as well. Because they need to concentrate more so on health, safety, and food. We need to secure these things.
All right, great. I want to thank you so much, Mr. Curtis Douglas. Quite a lot to talk about this morning, but we are out of time for this segment. But don't worry, we've got a whole lot more coming up for you after the breaks.
It's a brand new morning, rise up to a brand new dawn.